Yes, welcome to the finale video of today's series of JavaScript daily life. Today is the 10th day, and it's going to be the final day where I have told on yesterday's lecture that we are going to build a small to-do list. Based on what all we have learned till now, we'll be applying all the concepts, and let's see if we can make it within an hour. But expect for this lecture to be more than an hour. I have already created all the elements of HTML and CSS since, as you have already known, this is not a design course. I only will be concentrating on the interactions of what we can do on that to-do list. Okay. However, I will explain whatever elements I have created along with the styles so that you will not be as confused as you are expecting. So that is everything for an introduction. Let me just read the live chat. My mind is literally blank. I have been working continuously for about 2 to 3 hours. That's why I cannot speak up. Sorry for that. So, hey Adrish, hey Avinash, hey Ayan, Mrugesh, hi. Good afternoon. Welcome to the last day. All right. So let's let us not delay further. Gosh, why can't I speak today? It's share my screen just 1 second. Cool. So this is my code editor, and do not worry, we have lots of lines in HTML as well as CSS, about 160. All right, and this is the output for the to-do list style. So this will be our UI. I'll just demonstrate what we are gonna build along with the interaction, right? So as soon as a user clicks, types in here, and as soon as he submits it, a new to-do will be created as like this. He can either edit it or delete it. Whenever he clicks the edit button, model. Have you ever guys known of model? Something which pops up from the screen with the background of a darker color, that is called as a model. I'll show you that. For that, I need to just go to the style and make it as display flex, otherwise it won't work. Again, since this is not a CSS course, I won't be going deep into it. So as soon as he clicks the edit thing, this model will pop up along with the value here, right? So as soon as he types in and presses the edit button, it will be edited automatically. So this is all we are going to do it today. And if he presses cancel, the model will be off. That is this model will go away. So that is what we are going to do it now. But for the initial state, the value will be none so that we can see the screen. Otherwise, we cannot see the screen, right? So that is it. All right. With that said, let me just go through all the HTML elements I have coded as well as the styles, right? Again, this is not at all a framework. I have done it from scratch. If you literally remove the style, you can see what output it will be. This would be the output. Funny, right? So just imagine how powerful CSS is. So that is why front-end developers take a lot of time in learning CSS. So just one line of comment had made from like, how can I say, like a fair and lovely ad. If you reload it, it will become beautiful again. All right, enough of the chit chat. Let's dive deep into what I have coded. So this is something which was the model I was talking about. Whenever the user clicks, the model will appear. This code is dedicated to that model. This is the base of our application. It is inside a container and it contains a form which stands for the creation of the form and the list itself for presenting all the to-dos which the user has created. All right. And that is it for HTML, nothing more on HTML. However, in CSS it is a bit larger. So let me just show it here. So firstly, I have resetted everything with the help of the margin and padding, followed by the fonts of Jost. I found it on Google, fonts.google.com. I'll just show it here as well. Fonts.google.com. I think they have changed their UI. Before it wasn't like this. It was a bit different. I just typed here. Yeah, it was here. I choose this font, and all I did was just go here. I chose the styles. I took the light. I didn't think, yeah, I took the regular as well as the medium one, and I went on to the embed option. I chose this and I import. Oh, not this one, the other option, which is the import thing. So I just copied it and pasted it here. That is all I did. All right. Moving on, I set the font to Jost. I made some CSS styles here like color and positioning the H1 tag to center, blah, 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 and added some styles to the input so that it will not be ugly enough like how we would see regularly. Instead of being like a boxy thing, it is now a bit more considerable, right? So after that, I have changed the placeholder as well. Yesterday, if I told you, this is called as a placeholder. The one which disappears as soon as we type, that text is called, that temporary text is called as placeholder. I have changed the placeholder as well. I've set some width and height for the container. I've added some styles for the button. I've generalized the common styles as button and added some special styles for edit, delete, and create. Delete is something which always comes in red color, so I choose red color. Edit is something which always comes in yellow, but this this yellow doesn't match well with this particular bluish black color, so I choose purple. And create is something which always comes in green, so I thought of using green. I think that is pretty much about it. I use the model as the z index as 3. So why I'm using z index is that since it's a model, any element which is beneath it or which is below it cannot be clicked and should not be clicked as well. So that is why if you choose the z index as a higher position, it will be like the topmost element. You cannot click any elements which is below it. So that is why z index works. And I guess that is pretty much it. We have just normal styles. We have the container edit. Container edit is something which comes under the model itself. I told you, right? This is the container edit. We have the model thing, right, for the edit panel. We have a container there as well. And that holds all the form and the buttons. So I styled that as well. And yeah, this considers all styles regarding the to-do list itself, whatever you are seeing here. So if you are familiar with HTML, you have a UL tag. UL is something considered as a list, and LI is something which is considered as a list item. So I thought, why not use the tag for containing a list? So I have the UL for all the lists enclosed inside, and each list is a LI, that is a list item. And I have done some stylings as well. I guess, yeah, that is pretty much about the styling of it. I do not want to go much deeper on it. So we have 3 to 5 missions to accomplish for today. The first, I'll just write it so that you will understand what we are going to start, right? I don't want to start directly onto coding. We will travel through a thought process and then we'll start coding it so that we both can be on the same page, right? So there are some things which needs to be done for this application, and this is just designed. Still, it won't work at all. If I click anything, it will not work at all. So yeah, there are some things which needs to be performed. The first one is creating a to-do, obviously, right? Whenever you're creating a to-do, it should affect programmatically as well as in user interface. What do I mean by programmatically is that we will be having some sort of data and we will be pushing the data inside it. Obviously, you would have guessed it, it's an array. So we'll be creating an array for all the to-dos and each element would be an object. I'll tell you what it is, all right? So that is it for data structure in programmatical way. But in UI, you need to create a new list item and place it below, right? That is the next step. I'll just have a shorter form of creating it a to-do, and I'll put some arrow marks here. One programmatically, right? Another one is UI. We need to carry out those changes. The next thing is editing a to-do, right? Not just edit, but whenever the user clicks this particular edit button, the model should pop up. The one which was having a darker background, that should pop up. So that is the first step you need to do. Whenever the user edits it, model should pop up. 1 second. Is there anything, is there a problem, guys? My voice is good, right? Just give me 1 second. Yes, your community manager has called me and asked whether Sangeeta is present. If Sangeeta is not present, please guys go and just give this particular live link so that she can join. All right. So where was I? Yeah. So we need to make the model pop up out of the UI. That is the first step. And we need to put whatever previous value of that to do inside the new form. What I mean by new form is that, let me just do it again here. Let me just make it as flex, right? So now if I reload it, you could see I'm having this form value, correct? This is where you need to populate the old to-dos value, all right? So you need to make this populated. So that is our second step, populate old value, all right? And then whenever he clicks the confirm button, that is here, the new value should be edited programmatically as well as in user interface again. So after he clicks it, it should affect programmatically as well as in UI. Got it? Let me make this full screen so that I'll get some extra screen real estate. Yeah. So the last thing is pretty simple, deleting a to-do. All right, that is pretty simple. All you have to do is just find that to do and then remove it programmatically as well as from the UI. That is pretty simple, right? Programmatically as well as from UI. Got it? So we know already how can we delete an element from the DOM, but we do not know exactly how to delete an element from an array, right? There are certain ways to do that. One, you can use the filter method to just eliminate that element and use all other elements. That is one way. Or you can use the splice method. Splice method is something which allows you to delete an element inside an array. Let me give you a short tutorial on splice so that we all can be on the same page. So let me just inspect it. Right. Let me go to the console tab so that you can see it. We just shrink a little bit here. Cool. I'll drag the video panel as well. So let me create a new array called var array is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. So what splice does is it expects a starting index and the number of elements it should delete from that starting index. So let's say if I want to delete 3 and 4, I need to mention the starting index as 2 and the number of elements I need to delete from that starting index. So if I want to delete 2 elements, I need to mention the index as 2 and the number of elements as 2. Got it? If I want to delete 2, 3, 4, I need to mention as the starting index as 1 and number of elements to be deleted as 3. So let's see what happens. I'll use array.splice, and as you can see, the first argument expects a starting index. So let me just put 1 here. If I want to delete the elements from whatever index it's starting, let's say 3 elements, I'll just put 3 elements, and if I press enter, you could see the elements which have been deleted will be returned. So now if I check the array which has been affected, you can see I'm having only the 1 element which is remaining. So this is the perfect opportunity to use for deleting any to-dos basically. So what we can do is we'll just use array dot. I'll repopulate the array with the same values of 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say we need to delete the value 2 alone, right? The value 2. What is the position of the element 2? Index number 1, correct? So all you have to do is use array.splice, and the position is 1, and the element count is also 1 because we need to eliminate only 2, right? So if I press hit enter, the deleted element is being returned. So now if I press array once again, you could see the number has been deleted. So this is exactly how you will be deleting an element inside an array. If you had any doubts, please do say me and I'll be happy to clear them off as well. So this is something we have cleared it off. The next thing is, how can we pick a certain list item from a set of list items? Yesterday day before yesterday in DOM, we have seen that we'll be selecting an element, and if we use remove, it will be removed automatically. That is not an issue. But how to select a particular element if there are multiple elements inside a container or something? Well, turns out you can use custom attributes in HTML. So in our original HTML document, first of all, what is an attribute? An attribute is something which gives you additional information or additional setting to an element. So let's say we have this class attribute. What does this class attribute exactly do? It allows that element to have a class name called container edit. So that is one attribute. What does this href attribute do? It allows the link tag to point towards the style.css document, correct? So these are all settings for that particular element. Likewise, we can create our own settings. And how do we exactly do that? Well, let's just create a blank element here and I'll explain you how to do that, because this is basics, and unless I teach you these, you will be totally confused of what I'm doing. So that is why I'm moving step by step. So let's just create a new element called span. And to create a custom attribute for yourself, this is very, very important. You need to start with the keyword called data. Again, I'm saying you need to start with the keyword called data followed by a hyphen. So data hyphen, whatever name you want. We can keep any name we want. So let's keep a name called ID. All right. So what do I do is I'll keep as data hyphen ID is equal to 1. All right. I have this name as ID number 1. Got it? So now what I will do is I will make sure that getting this element is now very, very easy. How would I do that? Well, I'll just show it on the console here. Document.get element by tag name, right? Get element by tag name of span, right? This would give me the collection of span. If I do the same thing with an index of 0, this would give me the element of span. So how would I get the attribute out of that span itself? Well, for that I have to reload, I think. I will just do the same thing again. And as you can see, I'm getting the span of data ID. Let me just store it into a temporary variable so that I can store that and show you the properties of it. 1 second. Store as global variable. And now temp1 is having the span element. All right. So to get the value of these custom attributes, there is a property called as data set, and it is nothing but an object. All right. If you press enter, you could see it is having an object processing all the keys which we have inserted inside. So let me also show you another data attribute. Let's say we have name is equal to some span name, right? I'll reload it, right? Now I'll have again temp1 stored it inside here by saying var temp1 is equal to the element itself. Now the temp1 is having the span itself. Now again, if I use data set, you could see I'm having two properties now. One, the ID, another one, the name. So this, my people, is how you will be uniquely storing some data to an element. Other than that, you cannot like communicate with JavaScript or the HTML. Why am I saying all these things? Because to-do list item is something which is unique. It cannot have duplicates, correct? Whenever you are creating a new to-do, it should have a unique identifiable property, and that is nothing but our custom properties with the help of data. So step number 1, you should have the data followed by hyphen and followed by whatever name you want to create a custom attribute. Step number 2, select that element and check the data sets property, and you'll get all the custom attributes which you have done. Now it's pretty easy. All you have to do is just select the property name and you'll get the value of it. This is very, very useful for deleting an item inside an array as well as in user interface. Whenever you're going to delete it, you will first check the ID of the to-do, all right? Scan through all those available list items, select the one which you are pressing, and then you'll be deleting that in programmatical array as well as in the list as well. Got it? So this is our, the fundamentals towards deleting an array. Other than that, I think you will know everything. We have the events yesterday. With respect to the yesterday's lecture, you would have listened how to add an event listener and everything. And I think that is pretty much about it. We have the submit event as well. Whenever the form gets submitted, you can create a new element out of it. That is also easy. So I guess this is enough for the preparation. And if you had any doubts, please do ask me, because preparation phase is as equal as coding. Because if you do not have a logic, or if you do not have a way to process how you want to design, you will have some issues on it. All right. So please do ask me, guys, if you had any doubts. Again, for having a custom property of ID, you should use this strategy, because you cannot inject any custom properties from JavaScript to HTML without this method, right? Okay, Adrish is saying no doubts till now. If that is the same for every student, I'm happy that you have understood it, all right? Cool. So let me just remove this overlay here, because that is pretty much annoying now. Let me keep it back to none. And if I reload it, you will get the whole thing. I'll also delete this span here, so that since this was just demonstration, I was keeping it. Now it's fine. So again, the first step, you need to create a to-do, and you need to change it programmatically as well as the UI. So shall we start that? Cool. So what we will do is, firstly, we will get the form for here. If I select this element, you can see I am having the form of class to-do form. One thing I want to tell you is that I have kept a secret till now. In DOM, I didn't teach you completely on how to select elements. And you could have also guessed it's pretty much weird to use the indexing again and again for tag names and class names. Turns out there is a better way to do it. And in the newer versions of DOM, there was a method called as querySelector. querySelector is like the Brahm in Ramayana or Mahabharata. I'm not sure what epic was that. You'll have an arrow called Brahmastra. That arrow will defeat every single arrow of the opponent and will kill anyone. So it's like the Brahmastra for DOM. So instead of using get elements by tag name or get elements by class name, you can directly use querySelector and use for class name, tag name, as well as ID name. So that is what I'm going to do it now. And let me give you a small example of it for three different options as well. One for tag name, another for class name, another for ID name as well. I'll just create a new element called span of ID, example ID, and then have a smaller span tag, all right? So let me come here back to console, and now if I reload it, nothing has happened because I didn't have any value here. So I'll just use the same querySelector for all the three types: tag, class, ID. Okay, so I just have this for tag name now. Tag name. All right. Now I'll have a h1 element is equal to same strategy only, not any different from the previous methods I have taught you. Document.querySelector. All right. Now this function accepts a selector. And what is exactly a selector? A selector is something either you can call by class name or ID name or by tag name. Selector is something which you will often use in CSS. I'll give you a small introduction to selectors actually. So we have a class selector which you can call with the help of a dot. You have an ID selector which you can call with the help of hash. All right, this is an ID selector. All right, and you have simply tag selectors which just has the tag name. So it follows exactly how CSS selectors work. So you can use any valid CSS selector onto the querySelector. All right. Again, I'm saying you have the tag selector, you have the ID selector, and you have a class selector. All right. So we are going to use the same strategy here. So what I'll do is I'll just select the h1 tag. So if I press h1 here, it gives me, to our surprise, no arrays, nothing, just a single element. So you can ask me now, Sandeep, what if there are multiple h1 tags? Well, querySelector will give you the first found element alone, and it directly stops. So let's say we have 5 h1 elements, all right? If the document finds the first h1 element, it will return that alone and come out of the way. It will not go and search the other elements. Whereas in get elements by tag name, it will search all the available tags and return you an array. All right. Turns out there is an option for that as well in querySelector. Instead of just querySelector, if you use querySelector all, you'll get the same technique. You'll get the same array sort of thing. Right? I'll just have another element called var class element is equal to, I'll just pick something which has a class name. Let's say we select this particular class of to do edit, right? And that is pretty simple. All you have to do is just use the class selector. Class selector is something which comes with a dot. ID selector is something which comes with a hash, right? So I'll just do the same thing as document.querySelector and then select it with a class selector symbol, which is nothing but a dot. And what was it again? To do edit, right? To do edit. And now the class element will contain the div itself. Let me do for the ID element as well. ID element is something, same strategy, document.querySelector. And I have an ID selector here. ID is something which starts with a hash. And since it was having the name of example ID, I'll do the same here, example ID. And now ID element will contain the element which has the ID. So how awesome it is. Instead of using 3 different methods, get elements by tag name, get elements by class name, get element by ID, we are now using one single method which can be used for all purposes, class, tag, and ID. So we are going to start from this particular method. I purposefully kept it at the last day because I do not want to bloat you on that day. I clearly know that DOM is a vast topic and I didn't want you to bloat all the methods and everything. So since it's been 2 days, I think now you could have settled with all the DOM topics and everything. All right, great. So our first thing is to select the form itself, right? And then we need to add it inside an array as well as inside program UI as well. So the first step is to select it. So let's go and select the form. What exactly is the form is to do underscore form. Let me go to app.js. I'm going to touch it for the very first time. I'll have the to do create. By the way, please do stop me if I'm going too fast. Right? So the get elements method have no value. Unfortunately, yes, they have literally no value. All of them use querySelector in this age. It was an older method, but still it is existing because any older websites which is currently using that will be obsolete, right? It will not work. The application will crash. That is why they are still keeping the older methods. All right, so now what I'll do is I'll just use a class selector and use to-do form. I always do forget the class names because since I'm speaking as well as I'm typing, I cannot remember much of the data. So the name is class of to-do form. Cool. So we have the to-do form. And I think that is it for now. What I'll do is now I will have the first step, adding it in programmatical wise. So what data we will be exactly getting? The to-do itself and then a randomly generated ID, right? In our daily world, what property can be taken as a random generated ID? Either you need to have some algorithm to generate it, or you can use our time as random ID because you cannot rewind your time. You can only go forward. So how does that sound for a random ID? Because time is something which is static at that instant, but you cannot reach to that instant. Whereas if you select numbers, you can reach back to a number or you can manipulate that number, whereas time cannot be manipulated, correct? Or else what I can do is I'll just go to Google, get some method for randomizing an ID and I'll just paste it here, but it will be confusing for you guys. So for simplicity purpose, let us just pick the date as the ID, all right? And we have some methods for creating a date. If you go to date.now, it's a built-in method in JavaScript. Date is something which is a class. Again, I cannot cover object-oriented programming since it's the last day, but just understand that it is a parent which has an inbuilt method called now. Now will give you a unique timestamp. Basically, what is a unique timestamp is that it will run from January 1, 1970. Don't ask me why I have designed like that. this timer has started running from January 1, 1970. So the time when we calculate from 1970 till now will be this value. And the second point is this is in milliseconds and not in what? Not in seconds. So if I press enter, you could see the time has changed. I have just watch this value, guys. When I'm selecting it, the preview was giving me as the time of 2860. But if I press enter, it was some other value. So this is what exactly I'm trying to explain you guys. Time is something which cannot be reversed or can be manipulated. So I think this is exactly what we want as a random ID. Again, why we want a random ID? To prevent any duplication errors. If I click delete, this should not delete any other to-do. This should only delete the to-do which we want, correct? So it should have some sort of unique capability. And that is why we are giving a unique capability of ID, which is unique identifier. We are identifying the true item with the date object. So it's pretty easy. All we have to do is just convert it to string with the help of toString, and this will give me the value of the string value. That is pretty easy. So this is what we are going to do it now. Can we do it and wrap it inside a function so that we don't have to type it again and again and again? So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a function called generate random ID, and this is all gonna take the return value of date dot now dot toString, right? And I'll close this function as well. So now whenever I call this function generate not random ID, what happened? Function dot now. Oh, sorry, I forgot to call this function. That is why it was not working. So now whenever I call this function, you could see I'm getting a random value, right? So this is exactly what I want, guys. All right. Again, a small pro tip. That is why I was teaching all these things. Again, I could have clearly removed all these tougher topics and straight away gone into the lecture, but I didn't feel to skip these things. That is why. So we'll just copy the same thing into our file because, as you know, this is a temporary area and it's reset whenever I am reloading the page. All right. So now I will come here and I'll have the function pasted here. Just a small function. It just returns the current date with a string enclosed value. Got it. All right. So we have the form. Now what we have to do is we need to add an event listener. Since still we are in creation part, we need to add an event listener and we need to add in the programmatical wise as well as in the user interface wise. So I need to have to do create form dot add event listener of type submit. Again, if you are coming for the first time here, please do watch the other videos after this is getting finished. All right, so this will take a callback. Again, callbacks have been detailedly discussed yesterday. Please do watch that lecture. So this is something we will have a function here, and this will get automatically invoked whenever the user presses the submit button. In other words, the create button. So I'll just have a function here called create to do. So what exactly we need to do now? What exactly we need to do? Firstly, we need to generate a random ID. All right, generate a random ID. That is the first step. Get the details from the form. That is this form. Right. Get the details from the form. Enclose it in an object. Enclose it in an object. It will have two properties: ID and the to do itself. And then add it in the array. Right. And finally, create a new element and inject it to the HTML document. So these are all the steps we are going to follow. Let me recap. I'll be creating a random ID. I'll be getting the details from the form. I'll be creating an object and putting these particular properties, key value pairs inside it. I will add it in the array and I will create a new element and inject it into the HTML document. Speaking of adding an element, it is very easy. I will give an introduction to that as well. So let's say we have an array of 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to add a new element, you have two ways. One, add at the beginning of the array or add at the end of the array. We are going to add it at the end of the array because that doesn't matter. The position doesn't matter here. So all you have to do is just call the method called push. pushes something which is self-explanatory. It pushes an element inside the array. So I'll just add an element of 5. Now, if I press the same array value, it will give me the new value of array. So this is something pretty self-explanatory and easy as well. You call the push method, you put the value here, and it will add the value inside, right? So that is it for editing in the array. And as you could have already learned on day before yesterday's, we need to create a new element and inject it inside the UL tag. Since I was having a demonstration of how this to do would be, I was purposefully hard coding it, but this would be obviously empty at the beginning. Okay, I have an error here. I think, yeah, I forgot to have the callback. So I'll just keep it. If I reload it, you can see the to-do list item has been disappeared, because this is how actually it will be. Because if you do not have any to-dos, how would it contain the to-do item? But to show you how it will be after we create it, that I have kept this as set. All right, let me delete it. And I think, 1 second. No, I don't want to delete it. I'll just comment it so that we will have a layout of how it should be. All right. Cool. So as you can see, we have the list item. List item contains 2 elements, 2 child elements. One second. Document.querySelector is same as document.getElementID for selecting ID selector. Yes, but it not only functions for ID selector, it functions for class as well as tag elements. All right. So I'll just discuss what that list item consists of. We have a span tag, right? The span tag contains the to-do, whatever we are typing, and we have a set of buttons here, if you could see. This button will contain an edit and the delete button. What will the edit do? The edit will open that model, and delete will simply delete it. So just keep in mind, we need to add 2 event listeners for every single to-do item. I'll just do that whenever I'm coming. So just for now, understand the markup of a to-do item. We have a li, we have a span, we have a div, and inside div we have 2 buttons, edit and delete, right? So that is it. I will now create a random ID now. I have an ID here, and that is going to be generate random ID, right? Now what I will be doing is I will be getting the details from the form, and that is pretty easy. All I have to do is just say what to do is equal to event dot target, which will give you the form itself. And then, as I've told you yesterday, if you have the name property inside that particular to do, it will be having as an object property inside JavaScript. So as you can see, I'm having the name as to do here. So it's convenient for me to just ask to do and then the value of it, right? So I don't want to proceed much further. I just say I'll just print the values here to make sure that I am getting a correct data set, right? So now what I'll do is I'll reload here, and if I just type something and click create, it is not working. Why is that? Because as I've told you yesterday, form has a default action. It submits automatically to the server without waiting for us to manipulate data. It reloads automatically, and we do not want that to happen. So what I'll do is I'll just prevent the default action, and that is done with the help of event.prevent default, right? So now if I reload it and type once again, like say to do first, and if I press create, you can see I'm getting the value of to do first as well as the ID as well. Cool. First step done. The next step is to get the detail. After it, I have to enclose it into an object. So I just create a new object called to do object is equal to an object itself. And this would contain 2 elements. I mean 2 properties. One, the ID itself, and that is the ID. And another one is the to do itself, and that is the to do. Right? The to do as well as the ID. Now if I console log it, 1 second. Guys, please do ask me anything if I'm going too fast. All right. I'll reload it and I'll type once again. And if I press create, you could see I am getting an object of the ID as well as the to do. This is exactly what we want. Cool. That is done. So the next step is to add it in the array. As I've just told you, we need to create a to-dos data structure. That is some sort of collection. So I'll just have a new variable called to-dos, and that would be just an empty array, right? And when we start the application, obviously it will be empty. So now what I'll do is after I create an object, all I have to do is just push the new object inside the array. And now if I console log the to-dos, right? If I reload it once again and type something, type some gibberish here, and if I press create, you could see I'm having the array which has objects. It is called as now array of objects. Each object will contain a to-do property as well as an ID property. All right. So this, my people, is how we are going to structure our application for creating it. We have a collection, we have a data storage, we have the object for each to-do list, and each to-do list consists of two properties, one the ID and the next one is going to be the to itself. All right, cool. So we have the next step also ready. I'll just put it inside below the comment so that you will understand. And finally, this is where we need to be very careful. We need to create a new element and inject it to the HTML document. This is something which is going to be very confusing, but let's go step by step. The first step, what we have to do is we need to create a new li item, right? We need to create an element of li and it will give you a blank li item. Second step, we need to create a span tag and it should contain the inner text of the incoming to-do value. Third step, we need to create a div and it should contain two buttons. So how many times we need to call the document or create element? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times you need to create that particular document or create element. So can we start it? It is a lot of work, but it is indeed somewhat understandable. So what shall we do is we will start creating a new element. Firstly, we need to have the list item. I'll keep it as to-do list item is equal to document.create element, and this will have the li as the first tag. Remember, we are now at the outer level. All right. Now we are going to start having inside the inner levels. So we have to create all the elements of span. All right. I'll just keep it as to-do span is equal to document.create element of span. Right. Second step is done. The third step is to create this div and inject both the buttons. All right. So what I'll do is firstly I'll create all the elements and then I'll do the injection thing. Right. So I'll have the buttons wrapper is equal to document.create element of div. That's it. Right. And now the fourth thing is to contain the buttons itself. So the edit button is equal to document.create element of button, and for delete button, it's simply document.create element of button. Right? Cool. So we have created 5 elements. The list item itself, the entire wrapper, the span tag, which will contain the span, the div wrapper for both the buttons and each button as well. We are individually creating each element and putting it as the markup inside the HTML. That is not at all. As you can see, we have some class names here. Class names are used for styling. So if we forgot to use the class name, we will not be able to have that particular style. So we need to start having our class names inside. So we need to have the class name for li as to-do __ item. And how exactly that can be done is that I'll have another tutorial here. So let's say we have the h1 tag, right? We have the h1 tag. In order to add a class programmatically from JavaScript, there is a method called class list. Class list is an array which contains all the classes which is available. I'll even show you that. If I press console log and I select the document or query selector of h1, right, it gives me the h1. Since it doesn't have any classes, I'll just store it in a global variable so that you can understand. Now, temp1 gives you the h1. If I have this class list here, it says that the value is empty. But if I just go here and type some classes, watch what happens. class is something like this, this, right? I just reload it and do the same thing once again. Document.querySelector is equal to this, var temp is equal to this. So now temp.class list will give me the array values. It gives me all the class names which is available on that element. So this is how you can add or remove classes. As you could have already known, adding an element inside an array is easy as calling the push method. So all you have to do is just call as dot push and type whatever you want. Whatever you want, right? Class list dot push is not a function. Oh, I think it's add instead of push. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, I think it's add. Yeah, now it's fine. If I go to HTML by selecting the H1 tag, you could see I'm having the class name as whatever you want. But obviously it will get lost because it's done programmatically on the playground. So two things you have learned. One, to get the classes of a particular element, you have to use the class list and it returns you an array, right? The next, you need to use add method to get the, to just inject the class name, and you can use remove method as well. Remove is something which we are not going to use now, but yeah, that's it. So let me just use the same tactic here for to-do list item. So firstly, I need to add to-do list item dot class list dot add the class name of the to-do. Again, why am I doing this? To achieve the style which I was saying before. I'll just unlock it, uncomment it, and just show you what I'm trying to do. If I reload it, you can see I'm having the style like this. To have the same style like this, I need to add the classes. Otherwise, it will not work. That is why. I'll comment it. I'll go to app.js, and then I'll add the class list of to-do item. So to-do __ item, right? So this is done. The next step is to have span. Fortunately, span didn't have any sorts of classes. So let's go ahead right away. So the to-do span should have an inner text, right, of whatever data we have received from the form. So where did we store that value? We have stored it inside to-do, right? Got it? We have received it inside to-do, and that is exactly what we're going to do it to. Okay. The next thing is the buttons wrapper, and this should also have the class of to-do buttons. So let's do the same here. Buttons wrapper, right? Buttons wrapper dot class list dot add the class name of it. What was the class name? It is to-do buttons. To-do buttons, right? That is done. The last thing is to have these classes added. Let's do that as well. Edit button dot class list dot add of btn, and then another comma of btn create. If you want to add multiple classes, you can just use comma, 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 and just put as many classes as you want. That is possible completely. So you have button edit and button delete. And sorry, that should not be create, it should be edit. So it's edit, right? The same applies for the delete button as well. Delete button dot class list dot add btn and then btn delete, right? Everything is set up. Now we need to inject these elements one upon another. So what is the first step? Let's start from the minimal most thing, that is the last most nested parent. Which is the most nested parent here? The div wrapper, correct? And what elements does the div wrapper have? These buttons. So is it wise enough to start all the way from the bottom or all the way from the top? Obviously, all the way from the bottom is wise enough. So what we will do is we'll add these two buttons first inside to-do buttons, right? So what we'll do is we'll append them inside to-do buttons first. So that is the next step. So what we'll do is we will append buttons wrapper dot append child the edit button as well as the delete button as well, right? So we have appended the edit button as well as the delete button. This step is over. Construction of this markup is over. Now we have to add this entirely inside the list item. But before that, we need to append the span tag first and then the div tag next. So what we'll do is we will append the to-do list item dot append child of the span tag first, which is the to-do span, and then we'll do the same thing for buttons wrapper as well. Append child of buttons wrapper. All right. So we have constructed this successfully. This element is constructed successfully. For one last step, we still didn't inject into HTML. We have just constructed this element. So keep that in mind. We still didn't inject it into the HTML document. So what we have to do is we have to select the list first and then finally append this entire to-do list item, right? So let me do that. For that, I need to go and select the to-do list. So it will be to-do list is equal to document.querySelector of to-do list, right? That would give me the list. Again, I forgot the class name. Let me just check it again. It's to-do __ list, right? So what I'm going to do is I will be injecting this entire li inside the UL. And how is it done? It is easy. All you have to do is use to-do list dot append child and use what? To-do list item. All right, that's it. So now if you reload it, right, let's give it a dry run. So if I type it as to-do 1 and I press create, you could see I'm having the to-do successfully created. Just leave out the edit and delete. We'll do that later. But this is working, guys. Now if I press to-do 2 and if I press create, another element is created. If I press to-do 3 and if I press create, another element is created. And this, my people, is how you can inject the elements. One small thing can be done now. As soon as the user types it and presses create, this can be automatically cleared because that is how a form is submitted, right? As soon as the form is submitted, the element which is present inside the input can be cleared. That is for better, user interaction. So that is pretty easy as well. All you have to do is just go here, get the input. All right, we have the form here, right? We have the form. Where is it? We have the target to do, right? All you have to do is just make this particular value as an empty string. Right? Do not worry, I will just recap it once again. I will not just leave it and go to the next step. I will recap it completely. So now what I'll do is I just do to do 1, and if I press enter, it's also considered as submit. And as you can see, the text has been cleared. Phew, that was a lot of steps. So let's go through a recap once again. Step number 1, we have prevented the default action, correct? It should not reload the form. That is step number 1. Step number 2, we created a random ID. We created a to-do value from the input tag and we created an object. That is step number 3. Step number 4, we added this object inside the to-dos array, and that is now considered as the data storage, right? So now, if I go to console and press to-dos, I'm sorry for that, press to-dos, you could see I'm having the elements stored here. So now if I have to do 2, and if I press enter, and if I again check the value of to-dos, it will have 2 elements, and 2 elements consists of the ID and to-do values. So this is the most neat way, the most neat way of storing data inside a collection, right? So that was the 4th step. The creation step was something which is pretty finicky. So let me just delete the class list and keep it as a separate step so that you can understand it. I will remove all the class list steps alone and keep it in a separate way so that it won't be that much confusing to understand. Yeah, so this is done. And now what I'll do is I'll have the inner text as well in here. So we need to have the delete and edit buttons inner text. So that is done. Inner text is equal to edit. And now the creation phase is over, but still we need to complete some other things here, and that will be discussed after the recap. All right. So now if I reload it once again, I'll do one last time for creation phase and it will be showing in a proper manner. Cool. So let me continue my recap. What I was doing is that I was creating all the necessary ingredients. This is like cooking. We were first allocating all the required ingredients for that recipe. What were all the ingredients? The li tag, the span tag. I'll just keep this aside so that you can see it side by side. Okay. That would be a great way to explain. So what is the first thing? Array tag. So we have created the array tag. The next thing we created span tag. That was the span tag. The next thing we created the div tag. That was here. And then we created the both buttons, edit button as well as delete button. And we started to assign all the inner text values, because as I've already told you, document or create element is like giving a newborn baby. It does not know anything. We need to train that. So it will come with no values, no attributes, nothing. And what we have to do is we need to have the class list added, but before that we need to add all the texts, which has this, I'm sorry, I'm just going out of words. The span tag should have the to do value, the edit button should have the edit and delete values, and you need to start adding the classes inside each element. Class list will return you a DOM string map, which will consist of an array. It's not a real array, it's a HTML collection sort of an array. It's limited, but it provides you a method called add. Add will help you to add your custom classes, and that is how you were able to add your classes. Finally, you are starting from all the way up to the bottom to the top. We were starting from the div wrapper, and we were going one other level to the li item, and then one level up to the ul list itself. So what we were doing is we were selecting the div and appending these both buttons. That is this step, and then we were appending the span as well as the entire div wrapper inside the li item. And for one last time, we were appending this entire li item inside this list. And that is it for creating an element. There is one single step remaining. As I already told you, to have a unique identifier for each li item, you need to have custom dataset attributes. Did I tell you that? And that is easily achieved with the help of dataset property. So that is done as well. So all I have to do is, before appending to the list item, all I have to use is just have to-do list item dot dataset dot id is equal to whatever id which has been created here, whatever id which has been generated randomly. So I'll just equalize to id, and finally I'll append it. So now if I reload it and select to do one, nothing has happened in visual wise, but if we select it inside here, you could see I'm having a custom property called data id and followed by the id. This will be very, very useful when we are deleting it, right? So yeah, that is it for creation. We created it and we stored it programmatically as well as in a visual manner. I'll come to the live chat. Obviously, you will have doubts. I just see it. Yeah, Murugesh is asking how to comment all together in HTML. That is the same way how you would do in JavaScript. Just press Control A and Control/. It will just comment it, all right? So guys, if I was too fast, please do tell me and I'll be very happy to clear your doubts. One doubt, what is the difference between ID and class? How do we know that it should declare as ID or class in HTML? Give an example. Okay, that is a great example. Even though it's not part of JavaScript, I'll give you that example, Kushal. ID is something which should be occurred for only one time, all right? It has a higher precedence in styling it. Again, this is something which is related to CSS. I cannot go much deeper on it. ID is something which should be created for one single element. It cannot be duplicated. But whereas class can be duplicated. You can use the same class name to multiple. There is a proof here as well. If you could see, I am using the same class name called BTN for both the buttons, but you cannot do that for ID. ID is only preserved for one single element. And if you talk about specificity, specificity is something which is calculated in CSS for declaring the style. So let's say this particular example. You have a span tag, you have an ID, and you have a class. If that ID is selected and use the color as blue, and the class is selected and use the color as red, the blue color will be activated, because in CSS, ID has higher demand or dominance. ID has the highest dominance, followed by class, followed by tag name. Tag name has the lowest dominance and ID has the highest dominance. So that is why you will never use ID selectors in CSS, but rather use classes, because that will damage the styling and you will have more and more bugs, right? So yeah, ID is unique. Aman has told, Aman has helped me. Thank you for the comment. So yeah, guys, please do give me a thumbs up if everything is okay till now, everything is understood. I will be very happy to move on. I'll just give you a breathing time to analyze all of this, and let me move on to the next step. So the first step is over, guys. This first step is over. We have programmatically added it as well as in UI. So this is our next step, and we have the last step as deleting. I think it will go more than 2 hours. All right, it's not an issue. My plan was to not rush up. That is why something has to be taken away from today's lecture. So let it take more than 2 hours, not an issue. Yeah, just give me a thumbs up if you are familiar or if you are understanding whatever I was blabbering till now. Dot add works for JS arrays as well as HTML lists. No, Adrish, dot add is specifically for that class list array. I could even show you the type of it. So let's just select the LI item here, right? I'll just select this LI item. And guys, if you want to quickly have the value of any element, just go and select it. And if you press the value of $0, you will get the current element which is selected. If I even hover this, Google Chrome says this. Use $0 in console to refer to this element. So this is pretty easy. Instead of going there and using querySelector, go to that HTML, select the document, and if you now press $0, you have the LI items, right? So this will give me the currently selected, and this is pretty easy for me to show you as well, Adrish. So now let's say I have the class list thing, and as you can see, this is not a regular array. This is showing us something called as DOM token list. That is why the push method wasn't working. Push method is something which is used in regular arrays and not in original arrays. But if you convert it to a regular array, you cannot add it inside HTML. That link will be broken. That is why JavaScript themselves have given you a special method for this particular collection alone, and that is nothing but add. Right? Class list dot add. So now if I add it as some gibberish here, and if you press enter, and if you go back to $0, you will have the additional class name here. So that is it. That solves your question, Adrish. Push is something which is useful for all the arrays, I mean JavaScript arrays, whereas add is something which is specifically used for DOM token list collection. It's not an array. It sounds like an array, but it's not an array. Okay, great. So 5 people have given me thumbs up. I am thankful for you guys. So let me continue to the next thing, which is editing a to-do. This is even more time taking. So let me go step by step. I do not want anything to mess up here. So firstly, we need to activate the model pop-up, all right? But before that, you need to add an event listener for this edit button. And how would you exactly do that? That is the next step inside the create to do method. We still didn't add the event listeners for these buttons. We have just created it. We added the text content. That is it. We forgot to add the event listeners for the both buttons. I'll just delete this for sort of, dual layout and just come back to the original method. Cool. So we have added the buttons inside the div, but we didn't still add the event listeners. So that is our next step. We need to now add the edit button event listener. We need to add the event listener for edit button. We'll come back to the delete button later. All right. So I think this place would be correct for having the edit button. No. Before appending it, we need to use it. So I'll just use this place for adding the event listeners. Event listeners. Cool. So now for the edit button, all I have to do is just use edit button dot add event listener, and this should be just a normal click. I'll just use a regular function here to just check whether if it's working or not. Console log click. Right? I'll just use this normal function, console log click. I'll just reload it. I'll type something. I'll submit it, and I'll go to my console. And if I press edit, it gives me the click value. Cool. Super. So now what I do is, as I already told, the first step is to activate the model. All right. So how can we do that? As I've already told you, you will just go inside the style property. Yesterday I told you, right? Yesterday or day yesterday, I forgot that. You'll go to the style property and then change the display attribute for the overlay. So for that, I need to go and select the overlay first, which is nothing but this section, the to do edit section. So I'll just go and select this onto my JavaScript. I'll go here and I'll select it as to do edit overlay, or I'll just say model. I think model would be the correct thing. Document dot query selector of to do. I always forget the class names. Okay, so it's to do edit. Cool. So we have got the model for that to do edit as well. So the next step is to make sure that we are opening it or we are activating it. And that is pretty simple. All you have to do is go here and change the display property of the to do edit. Where is it? Yeah, here is it. So we need to change the display property from none to flex. That's it. And that is pretty easy. All you have to do is just go here and select it as flex. And you need to make sure that you have the, how could I say it? Yeah, so I forgot the variable name. It's to do edit model, right? I'll go here, to do edit model dot style dot display is equal to flex. That's it, right? We'll just go step by step so that you will understand what I'm trying to say. Let me create a new to do and let me click edit here. Watch what happens. Magic, right? It is working. So thumbs up for that. So the first step is over. This step is over. The popping up of model is over. So now what you have to do is you have to populate the old to-do value to the new form which is present here. And that is pretty easy. All you have to do is just get the value of whichever you have selected it. And this is where you will get the usage of IDs. So how would you get the to-do value if you do not know where you have selected it? Let's say we have 10 to-do list items, right? So if you click on the second to-do list item, how can you get the value of that particular second to-do list item? It's pretty tough, right? So all you have to do is just go here and take the value and put it here. Got it? So that is going to be our second step. Phew. All you have to do is just go here. Now we have to select the form. I'm sorry, I didn't use any form here. So, all right, that is pretty easy for me. All I have to do is just go here and get the input inside. And how would I get it exactly? Well, either you can use the CSS selectors. You have a CSS child selector. All you have to do is just go here. I have some examples here, I think. Yeah, this is a perfect example for a child selector. This particular selector means that take the H2 element which is inside the class of to do edit. So if I come to HTML, the H2 which is present inside the class of to do edit will only be affected. But if I removed it and used only H2, all the H2s will be affected. Got it? So that is why we are using the thing called child selectors. We are shrinking the searching area, like how PUBG works. After the red zone comes, it will start shrinking, right? Likewise, the zone is shrunk with the help of the selector. So that is exactly what we are going to do here as well. We are going to get the input which is inside the to do edit, because we have two inputs here, more than two inputs here. We should not select all the inputs. We should select only the input which is present inside the to do edit div container, and that is pretty easy. So all you have to do is just go here and have edit input is equal to document.querySelector of to do edit. As I've just told you before, any valid selector will be working here. So all I have to do is just use dot do edit space input. That's it. This will work perfectly. So all I have to do is just go here and say edit input. Right? After I make it as a flex thing, I have to make sure as edit input dot value. What I'm doing is I'll again make your memory jog up. We are populating the old to do value to the new form so that the user doesn't have to type it again and again. He can edit it again. And actually, this thing is an optional step, but I want to make it professional. That is why I'm actually adding this step. This step is optional. Either you can have a plain form or you can add it inside it, right? So this is our second step. I'm adding the value of the previous to-do value, and that is done with the help of the to-do value which was having before, right? So let's try this now. I'll go here, I'll reload it, I'll create something, and if I press edit, you could see I'm getting the old to-do value. Now I can type whatever I want. Thumbs up? All right. So the second step is also over. Now what I have to do is I have to change it in programmatical wise as well as in user interface wise. So how can we change programmatically? First step is to go to the array, right? I will just type it here, right? The next step is go to the array, find the element, right? Find the element and change its value, right? You have to change its value. That is done programmatically. And the next step in UI is the same strategy. You have to go here, all right? You have to make sure you are going here and you are changing the span alone. That is it. That is it. Yeah, going here and you're changing the span. But before that, you should not do this here, but instead, after the user presses edit here. So again, you need to select that button. You need to add an event listener for click here. So yeah, this is pretty confusing. The two steps are for the model alone, but the next two steps for programmatic as well as UI will come only if the user presses the edit button. It's like confirm button, right? It's like confirm button. So all you have to do is just create another thing, right? So how can we do it is that firstly I have to select the button here, right? Yeah, I need to select the button which is inside the edit buttons class. Okay, cool. So I need to add another listener inside and then use it. Okay, cool. So I'll just use the button here, edit, confirm button, right? Again, do not lose the track, guys. We are going to find the button which is inside the edit buttons class. So edit buttons and the edit thing. So how can we do it? All you have to do is just use button edit. That's it. So document dot query selector of edit buttons and then button edit, right? So we have selected that button as well. And now what we have to do is after this is done, we have to add a new event listener for that button. And that can be done outside as well. There is no issue for that. So yeah, I think that is pretty much about it for this section. Now I have to do is I have to add an event listener for this confirm button. And that is pretty easy. All I have to do is just do it outside. Edit, confirm button dot add event listener of click. We are clicking it. And then we are having a normal function. I'll just check whether if it's working or not. Let's have a console log of confirmed editing, right? I just reload it, type something, use click and use edit here, type something. And if I press edit once again, you see I'm getting the confirmed editing. So this is the place where you have to get the value of the to-do item. All right, cool. So what we have to do is we need to take the to-do item here, right? The first thing, this is very, very important, guys. The first thing is to find the element which you are editing inside the array and change that alone inside the array and change that, right? That is the first step. The next step is to change the UI by changing the span tag, right? If you had any doubts till now, I'll give you guys a break. I mean, not a little break. I'll give you guys a second or two to just wrap your things until here. Meanwhile, I'll just see the live chat. We are using the same ID generated by random ID for to-do object as well as to-do list item. To-do list item, yeah, correct. We are using the same ID. So we are having the ID generated here, right? We are using the same ID inside the to-do object as well as we are creating the data set property and then having it here, right? The same ID value. Just give me a thumbs up if you have understood till now, and I'll comfortably move on. Yeah. Right, Adrish is saying thumbs up. Others, guys, we have 12 viewers here. Since this is a tougher topic, that is why I'm going slower. Amansha. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, I am back. Avinash is saying thumbs up. I'll get one more and I'll confidently move forward because there is another tsunami waiting for you, to be very frank. All right, cool. So let us move on. As I've already told you, we were inside the method of create to do. The event listeners of edit button was inside the method of create to do. That is why we were able to get the ID as well as value, correct? Just understand this very deeply. We were having the event listeners inside the create to do method. And that is why we were able to get the values of ID as well as to do. But now we are outside of the create to do. So how we will get the to do ID and value? Did you think of that? How can we get the to do ID and value? It's impossible, right? So since we are at the outer function, how can we exactly know which to do needs to be edited now? Which to do item should be edited now? It's not possible, right? It's not possible to track. So I purposefully kept it as a separate lecture, and then I was not at all telling that before. So what we have to do now is we will have a separate input inside and then associate that ID whenever that model is created. I'll tell it once again. Whenever you're opening that model, you will be assigning the value inside a hidden input. So hidden input is something which has the property of hidden, and all its purpose is just to be inside the HTML. It will not show to the user. It will not be shown to the user. It will be just as an element which is inside here. So if you just come back here, and if I type something and create it, even if it doesn't show here, if we go inside the container, you will have the input. Where is it? Yeah, you'll have the input here. This is shown nowhere because it's not highlighting anything. But if I highlight the text thing, it's getting highlighted. Could you see here? Could you see this, guys? So all you have to do is now have the value of that particular to-do ID set to this hidden input. And that is the key to get it. So what we will do is the moment the model is popping out, the moment the model is opening, you need to assign the ID of the to-do inside the value of this hidden input. Then all you can do is you can just get the value of the hidden input. That is pretty easy, right? So let me just select the hidden thing, all right? And that is done with that. Let me just have a class here because that is pretty easy to get it. Edit input ID. I'll have it as an edit input ID. Some random name, that is up to you. So what I'll do is I'll get here hidden input is equal to document dot query selector of just, I always forget class names. It's edit input ID, right? Again, guys, I'm recapping what I've just said. I am creating an input of type hidden, right? And then I will be assigning the value whenever the model is popping. Whenever the model is popping, that particular to-do's ID will be populated there. So no matter how many to-dos I create, whenever I click the button of that particular to-do, the ID of that to-do will be populated. So now it is easy to track down programmatically as well as inside the HTML as well. So that would be a perfect choice. And where exactly do I have to keep it is inside the event listener, because whenever I click the event edit button, the first edit button, only then the model pops up, right? So this is the perfect place to assign it. So that is pretty simple. All you have to do is just put hidden input dot value is equal to the to do ID itself. So now if I come to the edit confirm button, all I have to have is just the event, right? Now if I just console log the event dot target, this would give me the edit confirmation button, right? I'll come here, I'll reload it, I'll create a new to do, I'll create it, I'll press the edit button, I will do something here, I will just press the edit once again, and if you could see, I'm having the button here. So now it is easy enough to get the element which is present inside the container. I'll just give you a small tutorial of what parent element does, all right? So now since it's here, I'll just store it as a global variable. So now the button, I'll just tell it in a clearer way. The edit button is this, all right? Whenever I'm hovering it, the edit button is this. What is the parent element or what is the wrapper element for this button? I will also give you the example here. The div wrapper is the parent element for these both buttons, correct? These two buttons, parent is who? The div element. And who is the parent of this div tag? The container edit div tag. And who's the parent of this div tag? The to do edit itself. So there is a particular property in HTML called as, sorry, in JavaScript called as parent element. It reveals you the parent of that particular element. So that is exactly what we want. So what we have to do is just use temp1 dot parent element, and this would give you the edit buttons wrapper. Why am I doing this? Because we need to access the value of the input, the hidden input, and it is located somewhere. The button is located at a hidden level, at a nested level, and the input tag is located somewhere. So we need to go up one level and then reach that particular input element. That is the goal here. So we need to get the div, that is done. And if I do once again parent element, it will give the entire container itself. So now it is pretty easy to select the input. And how would I get it? I will store this inside the global variable as temp2. Now if I query select the input hidden itself, and what was the name again? The to do it, sorry, it's edit input ID, edit input ID. And if I close it, now I can get the value of the input itself. And now it's pretty easy. All I have to do is get the value of it, and it would give me the value itself. All right. I'm not sure why the value is the thing here. Just a second. Just a second. Okay, we have edit to do, and we have the value here. Actually, the value should be ID. Why was it? Hold on, I made a mistake, I think. Hidden input dot value is equal to ID. Edit input dot value is equal to do. Yeah, everything is good, but why did this have the value of the to do thing itself? That's pretty weird. Hold on. Okay. So the edit to do didn't get any value, but the hidden input got the value. I think we have a bug here. I'll reload it. I'll type something. I'll create it. If I press edit here. Okay, so we have a problem here, guys. Could you see this? I am getting the value popped up inside here, but I'm not getting any value popped up inside the text input. So there is a bug, I think. So we have the hidden input here that is done with the help of edit input ID. Okay, so I got the idea of why it happened. So if you could see here, guys, I was selecting the first input tag under the to-do edit, and unfortunately this is the first input, correct? This was the first input inside the to-do edit, so I need to make it even more precise. So what I'll do is I have a class here called edit input to do. All right, now instead of edit input ID, I'll have edit input to do. So that would give me the bug resolved. Edit input to do. All right. I'll tell you the error once again. Initially, I was generally specifying as input tag. I did not specifically purposefully use the class attribute, but that gave me an error because the hidden type input is the first thing which is present. So CSS selector will take the first input and affect that style, and that is why it wasn't working. So now that I have specifically mentioned class names for these, it will not be an issue here. I have mentioned for the to do, for the edit input, and the hidden input as edit input ID. All right. So now if I come here back and I create it, I use create, if I use edit, everything is working as expected. So as you can see, the hidden value is getting the value of the ID, and the input is the text input is getting the value of the to do itself. How cool is that? So let me come back to what I was explaining. After I confirm it, all I have to do is I have to go 1 level up and 2 level up to get the entire container, and then come inside the ID input. And that is exactly what I'm doing. I'll show it here pictorially so that you can understand what I'm saying. So we are currently at this button, guys. We are currently at this button. So the parent element of edit element, sorry, the parent button, oh my God. The parent element of edit button is edit buttons, right? So this was the parent element. What is the parent element of edit buttons? Container edit, correct? So all you have to do is you have to go 1 level up, 2 level up, and then access this particular input. And that is pretty easy. All you have to do is just use the class selector. Okay, that is exactly what we are going to do now. So the event.target, all right, I'll have bar parent edit container as event.target dot parent element dot parent element. Right now, if I console log the parent edit container, I will be getting the perfect parent. All right, I'll create something, and if I press edit, and if I press edit once again, just watch what happens. It gives me the entire container. So now it is easy enough to get the hidden input and then get the ID. All right. All right. So now I have to get the ID, right? To do ID, and that is pretty easy. All you have to do is select the input parent edit container dot query selector, and then use the list thing called edit input ID, edit input ID, and then use the value of it. Now if I console log once again the value of it, to do ID, this is what exactly I wanted, right? I reload it, I'll create something, I'll create something else, I'll create something else. So we have now 3 to-dos, all right? Let's check the first to-do. I'll go here, and if I press edit, it gives me the value of the particular thing. If I reload it once again and use another to-do, if I press edit again, it gives me the value here. Cool. So now the second thing is to make this cancel button work. If I press the cancel button, what should happen? This model should exit, correct? This model should completely exit, and that is pretty easy. All you have to do is just have another cancel button. Yeah, another cancel button. You have to select it from HTML, and you have to add another event listener, and then make that to-do model's style property back to none. Instead of flex, you need to make it back to none, right? So I have the edit confirm button. I have the cancel button now. Cancel button is equal to document dot query selector of what was it? Cancel button btn delete. All right, super. So I have to make sure that it is inside the edit buttons. So edit buttons dot btn delete. All right. So all you have to do is just add another event listener here. Cancel button dot add event listener of click, and then I have a function of event. I don't want that event. All I have to do is just make sure that I revert back the model display property to none. I'll just copy this entirely and I'll make it as none. Instead of flex, I'll make it as none. So now the cancel button also works. I'll reload it. I'll type something. I'll create it. If I press edit and if I press cancel now, closes conveniently, right? I'll press edit. I'll press now edit once again. It gives me the ID. I'll go cancel it. I didn't edit it now. I'll create another to just watch the ID property here. I'll go and edit it once again. If I press edit here, it gives me the ID value. So how cool is that? We have achieved the to-do value. So this is done with the help of input hidden, all right? And then we got the value from it with the help of parent element. The button was inside a small div, and that div was inside a bigger div. So we achieved going there, and then we went inside the input hidden tag, and that hidden inputs value was the to-do ID itself. It's complicated to understand at the first go, but if you watch this video again and again by typing along, you will definitely get it. Correct? Yeah, that is it for the to-do ID grabbing. Now what you have to do is you have to remove this particular text content and change it to the new text content, as well as change it in the array as well. In array, what you can do is you can just ask for that ID property with the help of find method. There is a method called find inside JavaScript. Again, back to a tutorial. So let's say we have an array called array, and it's having 1, 2, 3, 4. In order to get the element, you can use two methods. One, you can use the find method, and you can use the findIndex method. Find uses a callback function, and that takes two parameters. One, the element, another one, the index itself. So all you have to do is you can use the checking property there. What does mean by checking property? The equalize sign, I mean, the double equal to sign. That is what I'm trying to mean. So all you have to do is just use array.find, right? This takes in a function, and as I've just told you, it takes the element as the first property, the index as the second property, and then this is over. This is the callback function, as I've already told you. And now it expects a Boolean value to be returned. If the value is true, then the value is found. It's considered as found. If the value is false, then the element is considered as not found. So let's say we find the element 3. All I have to do is I'll return if the current element is equal to 3. All right. If it is found, it will give me the element itself. But whereas if I ask for an element which is not present in an array, say like 9, it gives me the value of undefined. So I'll give you a extra explanation of what happened inside. Find is something which is like a loop, all right? It iterates through each element inside an array. So what happened is that the first iteration, it will be 1. It asks whether if 1 is equal to 3. No, it is not. So it will return false. Then it will go to the next element. Is 2 equal to 3? No, it is not. So it will return false. Then it will go to the next element. Is 3 equal to 3? Yes, it is. It breaks out of that method and it will return you the element. But in our case, since 3 is not equal to 9, it will go to the very last element. Is 4 equal to 9? No, it doesn't. So since it's the last element of the array, it will come out of it and it will give you the value as undefined. Why am I saying this? This is exactly what we are going to do now. Since we have got the ID here, all we have to do is check every single object's ID property with whatever we have got. So let's do the same thing here. Let me just click edit here, and let me just click edit once again. I'll copy this, right? And I'll store it inside a variable of found ID and keep it as a string here, right? This is just about it. As I already told, JavaScript Playgrounds is something where you can code your own JavaScript or get the previously stored variables in your file. So since we have already our to-dos array, we have the array here, and each array is each element is an object, consists of two properties. One, the ID, another one is to-do property. So since we have got the ID property, we can simply use todos.find, and it takes in the function, right, of each element. So just keep it as to-do so that it will be even more compact. It will be even more understandable enough. And now all I have to do is return whether if the to-do's ID property matches with our ID, right? So I'll just use to-do.id is equal to found ID, right? Since it was matching, could you see the preview here, guys? It is giving me the object itself. If not, if I'm just using some gibberish here, Like say, for example, if I'm using some gibberish here, it will give me undefined. So what exactly was happening here? I'll again tell you, I'll again explain you what happened. To-dos array has two objects. So each object will be traversing here. It will go to the first object. It will go to this object and check if the ID property is equal to FSDJ. No, it's not. So it will go to the next element. It will check the ID property if it is equal to FSDJ. No, it's not. That is why it's returning the undefined. But for the previous thing, it gave me the object. So that is exactly what we want now, right? So turns out we do not need the element itself, but we want the index of that element, because that will be even more useful. Because think about it, if you are editing the 10th element, you need to go to the 10th element and change its to-do property, correct? So instead of getting the element itself, why not get the index? Why not get the index? Why not get the position of it and then change it from there? Well, turns out it is the same as find method, but the name of the method alone is different. I'll show you that as well. I'll clear everything and show you this. Instead of find, I'll just use findIndex. All right. If I press enter, if there is a valid index, if there is a match, it will give you the location of that particular element. Or else, if there is no match at all, just say I'm typing some gibberish. If I'm pressing enter, it will give me -1. -1 means there is no element found in the array and it is not at all found. But turns out that is not at all possible here, because if you have created an array, only then you can come to this model. Otherwise, how can you come to this model? That is not at all possible, right? So you don't have to find any, you don't have to check any edge cases here. You don't have to check if the value is -1, then don't do it, or else go it. You don't have to do that, because it's common sense, right? This model can be only opened if there is at least one to do. So if there is at least one to do, then there must be some ID present in that array, correct? So that is all about it, guys. Any doubts still here? Please give me a thumbs up if you understood it, or else please do ask me. I will be happy enough to solve your doubts. Yeah, it's a tough day today since it's Friday. I think we are going for 2 hours. Yeah. Yeah, guys, that is it. That is all about finding the ID inside that to-do thing as well. So yeah. Kushal is understanding it. How about other people, guys? Don't just say for my sake, people. If you are really understanding, just give me thumbs up, or else please do say you are not understanding it. All right, Aman Adresh is saying understood. I'm happy that you are getting it. Obviously, since this is not a complete course, don't worry. Since we are all gonna meet again, I will definitely tell you another time. All right, do not worry. That is a promise. That is literally a promise. I'll teach. Since we have more than 3 hours in a daily lecture, this can be stretched even further. All right, then yeah, that is it for finding an index and everything. So we are gonna go towards this route. We're gonna find the ID inside an array, and we are going to edit the to-do property inside, not the to-do object, the to-do property. Since I've told you there are two properties, right? One is the ID, another one is the to-do property. So what I'm going to do is, after I get the ID here, right? I got the ID. Now I'm going to get the index of the to-do. So let's say I'm having the to-do index as to-dos dot find index, and then it takes the function of each to-do, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to return the to-do ID is equal to the found ID, the found to-do ID, right? That's it. So after I get the to-do index, all I have to do is go there, go to that array, right? This is what I was saying. Find the element which you are editing inside the array and change that. So this command should be above it. And yeah, Avinash has given me three emojis of different colors. Thank you for that. So after I found it, I need to go to my array of that particular index and change the to-do property, right? That is pretty easy. You have to go, all you have to do is just go to to-dos of to-do index and then change the to-do property equal to whatever value we have received now. And how can we get that? Again, you need to select this input and get the new value. All right. So this is done with the help of edit input to do. And all you have to do is just go to edit input to do. I think you have already got it. Yeah, we have already got it. And all you have to do is just put the value inside. Edit input dot to do. Sorry, not to do, it's value. Again, guys, this is an input. And how do you get the value of it? By the value property, right? So you need to get the value of this particular to do and assign it to the found index objects to do property, right? That is done. And now this is also pretty easy. Since we have got the to do ID, all we have to do is just get the span tag out of the HTML, sorry, not span tag, the li tag, and then change its text property. That is very, very easy because you have got the to do ID, and all you have to do is just get the data set of it. So all you have to do is just go and select to do list, sorry, dot query selector, right? Query selector, and you have to just go to the how could I put it? Query selector. Just give me a second. You need to go inside the, I'm sorry for it, to do edit, right? To edit, and then you need to get the, to do item, and you need to get the data property. So how can we get that? I think you can do it like this. I think you can do it like data ID is equal to, right? You need to enclose it within here. You need to have a concatenation string, and you need to again open it, and you need to have the ID here. Let me just check whether it works, and then I'll explain, right? I've never used this type of thing because this is a valid CSS selector. That is why data ID is equal to like this. I'll just have it as to-do list item, and then I'll console log it as to-do list item, right? I just save it and just reload it. I'll create something. I'll create it. I'll go to edit, and I'll go to my console tab. I'll type something else, and then if I edit it, okay, we have an error. Failed to execute query selector on element. Data ID is not a valid selector. All right, great. So how exactly did I did this? Just give me 1 second. CSS attribute selectors. So this is called as attribute selector. We'll be selecting an element with the help of an attribute itself. And this is done by attribute is equal to value. All right, we have done it correctly. So why we have an error? Oh, got it. We didn't enclose it within quotes. That is why it wasn't working. All you have to do is go here and enclose it within quotes. I think you can have it as single quotes outside so that you can use double quotes inside. That is the only way to recover from that. So I think you should have double quotes and here as well. Right? Cool. So if I reload it once again, I'll create it, I'll edit it here, I'll type something else. And if I edit it once again, perfect. So we got the li tag, and that is awesome. Super. So let me just recap what I have just did, guys. CSS attribute selector is something which you can select with the help of an attribute. So let's say if you want to select an element which has the attribute of href, this will get selected, right? This will get selected. So similarly, you can, as I've just told, query selector is something which can be used for any valid CSS selectors. So if you go to W3 schools, you can have a perfect syntax here. You enclose it with square brackets. You have the element name first. You have the element name followed by some set of square brackets. And then you have the attribute name, attribute value, and followed by equals, which is in between them. So all I have done is went inside JavaScript and then asked for the data ID property, because that is what we want, right? We have assigned the data property, sorry, not the data, the ID property when we were creating it. And that is exactly happened here on this particular step. Even Sangeeta has asked me. This particular step is when we have assigned some data properties inside that HTML element. And now it is fine for getting the same here. All I have done is just ask the data ID property, have concatenated my to-do ID, and I have enclosed it within quotes. All right. So this is exactly what happened. And after I got the to-do list item, I can easily change the span tag now, right? So all I have to do is just get the span tag. I don't have to get this the entire to-do list item itself. I'll just get the span tag. So var span, all right, to-do span, right? Var to-do span is equal to to-do list item dot query selector of span. Because since we are at this particular since we are at this particular place, we are selecting the span tag and then we are going to change its inner text. That is it, all right? So the next step is to change the inner text, and that is done with the help of to do span dot inner text is equal to the same edit input dot AttainU, right? One last thing, after we have done everything, we need to close that model, right? So this is repeated. So we'll copy it and I'll put the same thing as here. That's it. We have completed the edit. So I'll go here and I'll reload it. I'll type something, and if I press create, this will get created. I'll go to edit, and if I now edit something else, and if I come here and edit it, wait and watch. This is now edited perfectly. I just neglect all the CSS issues. It's just overflowing, but just I'll create a new to-do called to-do 1. I'll create it. I'll go here and edit it as, instead of number 1, I'll write as to-do 1, right? And if I press edit, it is changed as to-do 1, all right? So now if I go and edit, but instead of editing it, if I press cancel, it is not edited. But I just saw a bug here. What was that bug? If I now press edit, it still says me the old value. Any idea of why was it? Because this is something which is related to state change. This will not happen immediately, but only if you reload it. And that is not something we are going to do it now, because this value will be changed locally, but not permanently. And React is there for that. If you have to change the state and if it needs to update to all the elements, there is a framework called React, and we will all learn that when we come to front end. But as of now, this functionality is working, all right? This, you don't have to do anything. You can just type whatever you want. If I press edit, this is working, right? So yeah, if you had any doubts, please do say, guys. I will be happy to help. So if you go to to-dos array here and check for the second to-do, you could see the data has been changed, right? Cool. So press the edit button. Or else we can do another thing here. Instead of just mentioning the to-do value, we can use the same strategy of how we have it here. Yeah, we can use the same document or querySelector, right? Let's try this. And I'm just curious because I don't accept defeat. That's what. I'll have another thing here. Again, this is completely optional, guys. You can totally leave it. Dot value. Dot value in the text. Right. You have the span and you have the text. All right, I think now it will work. Let me see. I'll create it and I edit it. Okay, to-do ID is not defined on case of line number 49. To-do ID is not defined. Yeah, instead of ID it should be to-do ID. So, sorry for that. Reload it. Type something. Edit it. Type another time and another time. Okay, cool. That bug has been resolved. So what I exactly did is, since I got the ID itself, instead of just relating to the old to-do value, I'm again fetching from the DOM and getting the new value. That can be done. Going to the new DOM and getting it and fetching it is how you can resolve that bug. I thought it cannot be done, but turns out it can be done. If I press to-do 1, just wait and watch. I'll press edit now. I'll change it to to-do O-N-E and I'll edit it. And if I press edit once again, you have the new value here, right? Okay, so the edit thing is fine. And yeah, that Avinash, you are not happy. Why is that? Please do ask your doubts. Again, if I press cancel, the edit functionality is over. And we have one last thing, which is nothing but delete. And right, that is pretty easy. The same strategies need to be followed. All you have to do is just go and programmatically delete it. and then programmatically, you have to delete in the user interface as well. So the first step is to add an event listener, and that is done with the help of the create function. We have added the edit event listener on the create method, right? Inside the create to do, we have added the event listener for edit button. So we need to again add the event listener for delete button now. So delete button dot add event listener of click, and then have a function, right? And then this is going to take the same strategy. All right. So now I'm going to get the to-do ID, but instead of finding like this is even more easier because we are located inside the to-do element itself. So we can easily get that ID. What I'm trying to say is that before we were not connected with the to-do list item, right? We were not at all connected with the to-do list item. But now, since it is inside the to-do list item, it is easier enough to get the ID. You don't have to query select or something. All you have to do is just go to the parent element and get the ID of it. That's it. All you have to do is just get the event target. Again, event target is something which reveals the element which is being affected by that event. So I'll get the target as event target, but instead of that, let me just take the to ID directly. To ID is equal to event dot target dot parent element, right? So let me just show you here. So the buttons, the first button is containing what? The delete button itself. Who is the parent of this? To-do buttons is the parent of this. Who is the parent of to-do buttons? The to-do item itself. So you need to go 2 times above. Parent element dot parent element. That will give you the entire list item itself. And now it is easy to get the data property of ID. And that is done with the help of dot dataset dot ID, right? Now, if I console log it of to-do ID, it will give you the same value. So I'll just go here, reload it, create something, and watch what happens. If I press the delete button, it gives the value of that particular thing. If I press the delete button for this, it gives the ID for this particular to. If I press the delete button, it gives the ID for this particular thing. Awesome. So now we have got the list item itself. It's easy to remove it. And how can we remove it? All you have to do is just remove with the help of dot remove. Find that element and remove it. And that is easy, right? You got the element entirely. So what we can do is we can have this store as to-do list item. All right. Now this will contain the li tag itself, the entire li tag. Now we'll have the ID here. Var to-do ID is equal to to-do list item, so that I don't have to type it again. I don't have to type the entire thing again, right? So to-do list item dot ID, dataset dot ID, and then this would be the to-do ID, right? Cool. So the to-do list item should be deleted, one, but you should also delete it programmatically. And there comes the findIndex method again. As I've already told you, findIndex allows you to give the index position, and splice method allows you to remove from the array. So exactly we are going to do that. Let me take this same step here. All right. Let me copy it inside, and this would give you the to-do index. All you have to do is now delete the element from the index, and you have to have the delete count as 1. So let's say we have 5 to-do items, and this gave me the value of 3. So what is the real count element of the to-dos array? 0, 1, 2, 3, the 4th element. All right. So if you want to delete the 4th element, what you have to do is you have to put the to-do index followed by the delete count, which is obviously 1. So the 3rd element will get deleted. Sorry, the 4th element will get deleted, and that is exactly what we are going to do now. To-dos.splice of to-do index followed by the delete count as 1. This will delete it programmatically. Finally, you need to delete it in UI. How could you do it? It's simple. To-do list item dot remove. That's it. You have to just remove it. That's it. So all you can do is you can have an alert message called to-do deleted successfully. That's it. Right. So now let me try it one last time. I'll create it. I will create another thing, and if I press delete on the SFJS thing, it says to do deleted successfully, and it got deleted. Right? How cool is that? We have completed the application. So let me give you a small recap. All right. Firstly, we got the creation function working with the help of all the data which we needed, right? We got the ID first, we got the to-do value first, we composed it into an object, we pushed it into the array. And next we have created every single element, the ingredients which were required, and those were injected accordingly with adding some class lists, all right? And finally, we were adding the event listeners for these buttons. Let me choose that. Okay, we have a bug here as well. If there is no to-do string, this should not get created, and this should be shown as please enter something. That is pretty easy. You can pretty much ask it here. If you come to submit inside create to-do, right? You can ask if to-do is equal to an empty string, you should not move ahead. You should just return alert as please enter a valid value, right? Now, if I save it, if I run it once again, if I press create, it will not process it, right? It will just stop it. Again, that was just a small bug. All right, what was I saying? So if I create a new to-do and press enter, it gives you the two buttons of edit and delete, correct? So if you come here all the way up to the event listeners, these were responsible for those deleting and editing. So you have an event listener for edit, have an event listener for delete. So if you click edit, it pop-ups the model, which is something happening with the help of this particular event listener. You are changing the display of that property to flex so that it opens up. Again, what you are doing is you are creating an input which was hidden, and you were assigning the value which was assigned to that particular list item, right? You are assigning the value of the initial list item's ID, and that is done with the help of custom attributes. Custom attributes is something which is done here, right? You were assigning the data set, and it gave you an object, and from there you were assigning the ID values, and you were accessing it, right? After that, you are having another edit input value, and you are getting the query selector of the particular list item, and then you are getting the value of it, and you are accessing it inside, right? This is done with the help of, this is done for populating the existing value into the new input, all right? I pretty much know that I'm just pacing it up because I don't have any other option. Since it's just 1 hour, I pretty much don't have any other option. So pardon me. Delete button is something which is used for deleting an element, and that is also used by going ahead parent element. Parent element is something which reveals you the parent of any element. So if you're having a button, the parent element would be the wrapper element of that particular element. So you go twice times because the container list item was 2 levels above. That is why you are using 2 levels above. And you are getting the ID with the help of the dataset property, and you are assigning it, and you are using 2 methods. Sorry, not 2 methods, 1 method. findIndex allows you to iterate a collection, and it has 2 options, true or false. If the value is returning true, then it will stop the iteration and come right away, or else it will go to the next elements. All right, that was findIndex. So we are literally getting the index. We were deleting the elements inside an array with the help of the splice method, and finally we were using the remove function. For editing it, all we were doing is we were getting the same strategy. We were getting the element of the edit container. We were going inside the ID, the hidden input, and we were getting the ID first. Then we were going inside the array, finding that object, changing the to-do property, as well as changing the to-do list items span tag. That is it for everything. We have a complete to-do list ready to work. So we have a create, we have an edit, we can go and edit here, and this will be working. We can delete it, and it will say to-do deleted successfully, right? If you do not want that, you can just delete it so that it will be even more interesting. So if you go here and create it, if you delete it, it will be snappy enough. Just like a mobile application. This works perfectly like a mobile application. No lags, no nothing, just pure JavaScript DOM. And that is it for our series. We have successfully completed all of our 10 days. If you are feeling so tough in this, please watch it again and again. I know your mind cannot take all the 2 hours. That is pretty hard. I can completely understand that. Watch it in parts. Like if you're having some doubt, go to that particular topic's live lecture, understand it, and then come back, right? And yeah, that could help a lot. I completely understand that you cannot get everything in one single go. And this is a pretty tough topic as well. So yeah, since I wanted and we as AttainU wanted to make the stream useful, we have decided to keep a project at the end of the lecture. I mean, at the end of the series, so that you can take away something from this. Instead of just learning it theoretically, you can learn something from this. That is it. All right. So could you provide source code and description so that we can watch the video again and refer the codes to understand the whole program? Definitely, definitely. I will do that. I will have a new sandbox. There is a website called Code Sandbox. I'll do that now itself. Code Sandbox.io. I will edit it now itself. Do not worry. Can we get the CSS and HTML? Yes, you can. You can. I'll just delete. Sorry, I'll just create everything. I'll just store it and I'll share that as well. I will sign in with my GitHub thing. Right. I will authorize my GitHub thing. Just give me a few minutes. All right, great. So I have my own sandbox, and I'll just create a sandbox. I have a vanilla sandbox, and then I'll have some files here. Just copy paste it so that you can like view it. I think and I can share it. Yeah, there's a sharing. Can share. I think copy sandbox link. Yeah, I have copied it. Source code for today. This is the source code. I still didn't populate it. I'll populate it right away in front of you guys. I will have a style remove outside, index.js outside. I don't want a source thing. I'll delete it. Here, just give me a few minutes, guys. I'll copy everything so that you can get it. Index.html, save. Okay, could not file related to HTML. I don't care. Okay, this error will be deleted if I do the right thing. I'll copy paste this entirely. I'll go to style.css. I'll copy paste it entirely. I'll go to my, I don't want package.json. This should be, okay, it says could not delete package.json. Okay, fine. Style.css, not style.css, it should be app.js. App.js is something. I didn't clean my code. Usually I used to refactor my code, but sorry for it, I didn't clean my code. Could not find module in path. Style.css. Why is it not able to find it? Index.html. Could not find module. Okay, it says me the thing. Still says me an error. I'm not sure why. I think I should have done it inside source. Let me just create a new file for source. Put it inside index.html. Actually, it should have been working. I'm not sure why. Let me check. It was working locally. I'm not sure why it is not working here. Okay. Cannot find module in path relative to index.html. So should I use that tilde operator here? Still says me an error. Okay, fine. I'll just delete this. Go here. The short description. It as to-do list, daily life, to-do list, application. Okay. Save it. that doesn't matter here since the file wasn't working. All right, cool. I will do this after closing this live because I think there is some issue. I don't want you guys to wait. I think that is it for today. If you had any doubts, please do ask me, guys. Can you please suggest the best resource where we can learn HTML and CSS as there are many in the market? I hope you were there. You are there in our course, right, Rugesh? We will be learning from scratch, actually. Yeah, I guess that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, I do not have anything to say. I just have no words to express since this is the last day. All right, guys. Bye bye, and have a nice weekend. Have a nice lunch.